Hey guys, we're going to learn something new today because we're going to talk about PX Lugers. Do you know what they are? Well, come check them out. Okay, this is a collection of PX Lugers. Many of them come from a local collector who let me borrow these to do the video, and a couple of them are mine as well. We're going to go through these pretty quickly, but let's start off with the obvious question. What is a PX gun? Well, when the war was over, May of 1945, the Americans were still sending troops over, but basically the ones who served actively wanted to go home, and then people who were signing up in 45 were sent over to help keep the peace. My father-in-law happened to be one of those. He came over right after the war was over, never saw any action, but he said he played a lot of baseball, and he did not pick up a PX gun. The PX is the post exchange, and that's where people would go for their toiletries and things like that. The GIs would go there theoretically to buy things cheaper. They could also go throughout the shops in Germany and buy things. They were encouraged to spend their money because, of course, the Germans needed the money to get their economy going again. So for 6 weeks after the war was over, Krieghoff still had parts to make these guns still in the factory. The factory was in Suhl, Germany. So Krieghoff factory, Suhl, Germany, they still have the parts to make these. And actually, Heinrich Krieghoff himself wrote a letter to, I don't actually know who the letter was written to, but it's published in my book. This is my book on Third Reich Lugers, and at the very end, because after production was all done, we go to, here's Krieghoff, Heinrich Krieghoff. They've now moved to Ulm, by the way, but so they're in Suhl. Why did they move? Well, because the Russians took over that sector. They took over Suhl. The Americans liberated the Suhl factory in April of 45, and then the Russians came 6 weeks later, so we had to move out, go to the American sector, and many of the manufacturers, such as Walther, for example, and Krieghoff, they moved their operations to Ulm. So that's why Walther was there, Krieghoff was there, and other gun manufacturers went to Ulm because that was in the American sector. Now, this is really hard to read. The only important part is the question, and by the way, the guy he wrote the letter to was Harry Jones, who wrote a book on Lugers a long time ago. This paragraph, he asks about the conditions at the Suhl factory at the end, and he said, "My craftsmen at Suhl assembled during 6 weeks till the Russians came from the parts in the factory, 500 to 600 Lugers for the American soldiers. But I do not know either the number nor the caliber or the lettering." It's broken English, but basically he's saying he made guns, Lugers, for the American soldiers, 500 to 6 of them. Now, I'm going to dispute that number. But the Russians were coming. They were moving out. They had 6 weeks to put together guns. Why? Because the American soldiers, if you watch war movies from World War II, the American soldiers would always say, when I capture or kill a dirty Nazi, I want to get their Luger and bring it home. That was one of the prize trophies for the GIs, was to bring back a German Luger. Yeah, they were renowned as the most iconic German weapon of the time, and everybody wanted a Luger. So, of course, if you went over to Germany, whether it was during the war or right after the war, again, 6 weeks after the war, and you could get a Luger, then you can go home and tell your kids and grandkids, I took this off of a dead SS officer, which, by the way, is the most common story we hear. No one ever took it off of a cook or a truck driver. They all came from a dead SS officer. So PX, that means post-exchange. After the war is over, Krieghoff has parts left over. These are all Krieghoff parts. And the craftsmen, because they all need money, are making them and selling them in the PX. We know that for a fact. It's been documented. They did offer German Lugers to the soldiers after the war was over at the PX. They also, my understanding is, they also offered daggers, the SS dagger and the SA dagger. They put them together from parts after the war was over. Again, there's parts in the factory. They put them together and sold them to the American soldiers as souvenirs. So I have here 7 PX Lugers. How many were made? Research indicates there's only about 245 because we have numbers. This is actually number 10. We have number 10, and the highest number we've seen is 245. If you have a PX gun that's above that, let us know. Mr. Krieghoff said they made 500 or 600. I think that estimate is off. Of course, he wasn't there to count them. He was out trying to find a new factory location. But they put together at least 245, making these very rare items to find. You're going to find every single one of these come with the Black Widow grip, except for this one. These are, by the way, chronologicals. This is number 10, and it goes up to number 170. So I have up to number 170, but we believe they made up to 245. Now, there's some things they all have in common. I mentioned the black grips, but this one, next to the last, this one is 157. It's got an inscription on it. We'll come back to that. But this one has red grips, which would have been left over in the factory from well before, because they stopped making the red grips in about 1940. So 5 years later, they evidently had a pair. I've never seen one with wooden grips. If you have a PX gun with wooden grips, let me know. Of course, they could have been swapped. We're going to do these in chronological order, but they all have different characteristics other than the fact that they all have Krieghoff parts. That doesn't mean they would never have a Mauser part or even a DWM part. I don't believe I have any of them with any other parts other than Krieghoff. Sometimes they'll have the Krieghoff toggle, such as this one, Krieghoff toggle, so we know that's Krieghoff. This one has the serial number here, and most of them do not. Of course, this is number 10, which is the earliest. Most of them have the serial number here, which this one is 121. And again, the font is much larger than normal, except for the first maybe 25. I mentioned I have number 10, but then I also have number 14. Let's see if, and it's a Black Widow bottom, Black Widow bottom. No, it's not marked. The Krieghoff toggle is not there. Next, this is the highest number I have with the small lettering, and this is number 23. No toggle, no Krieghoff toggle. Black Widow grips, but an aluminum bottom with the matching serial number of 23. So it's numbered here 23, numbered here 23. So we know that up to number 23, let's just round it off to up to about number 25, they used the small lettering. And then after that, I have 116. You can see it's a much bigger lettering, and it's numbered here, 116. It's a little sloppy on the 6, by the way. Here, this has the Krieghoff toggle, which, by the way, adds a little bit to the price. If you have that Krieghoff toggle, it sells for a little bit more money. How much do these go for? Actually, I've seen them go for anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000. And again, what adds to the value would be the matching serial number, which interestingly, we mentioned this one is small numbered there. This one is the same font as on the frame, but it's on the spine of the magazine. So we've got 116. What's the next one? This one has the red grip. It has an inscription. No Krieghoff toggle. But the inscription, let's see if we can analyze this a little bit, because this one is a mystery gun. Okay, this is a German name, Karl Roller, and it's May 14, 1944. Well, this makes no sense, and you're going to say, okay, the whole PX Luger thing goes out the window. The only explanation, and by the way, you can see this one actually has the military proofs, the Luftwaffe proofs on them. Not all of them do. There's one that does. So some of them have various degree of proofs. This one has no proof because they're using up parts. So with the idea that they're using up parts, this had to have been made for a German, an officer, I'm sure, came in and ordered a Krieghoff. Not sure how you could do that unless you're a pretty high-ranking person and you could order whatever you want. And it does have military proof. So again, not sure how that happened, other than they put the inscription on there. This is, it looks like acid etching. So they put the inscription on. Either the war ended and he never came and picked it up, or he died in the war, never came and picked it up. He ordered it, they made it. This frame was sitting in the factory when they put them together. That's the only explanation I can come up with. They used parts left over in the factory, including this frame that was inscribed to Carl Roller. I believe that's an R. And put it together with these parts, including military parts. No toggle here, but again, these are all Krieghoff frames. Now here's another one with an inscription, but a very different story. This one actually does make more sense because this one is dated 1945. This inscription says William F. Barnes. I did look him up. He was a staff sergeant. He probably, somebody in the factory, or he paid somebody to do a little inscription. It's dated 1945. It does say Seoul. So he was a USGI who was in Seoul in 1945. He had inscription put on there. And by the way, the Walther factory, they have several guns that not only have the name of the officer that picked it up. I know there was one to Sinclair, there was one made for Patton, and several others where the GIs would have their name inscribed, and then they would take home a Walther PP or PPK. In this case, this is a not marked Krieghoff toggle, no military markings, but this William F. Barnes, as far as I could tell, is a staff sergeant who picked this up at the end of the war. Now, we did the red grip. Then we also, I don't know if I did it already, but number 121, it's the large print. This does have the toggle. It has the Krieghoff toggle. They're all Krieghoff toggles. This one is marked Krieghoff, and it has military markings. Again, that adds value because people like it with the Luftwaffe markings, but again, never issued to the Luftwaffe in the factory at the end. 121, let's check and see if it's numbered. Look at that, 124, so close to being numbered. And now the last one I have, number 170, has an interesting story with it. First of all, these are all beautiful guns. Every one of these, you'll notice, there's not one that is worn or rusted. These people, the GIs that brought these home, really cherished them as souvenirs and kept them in good condition. And now, as the vets die off, they sell them off to people like Legacy Collectibles. We like to put them in collectors' hands because they will save the history. Interesting story on this one. 170, I don't remember all my serial numbers. I had this one in the safe. And I happened to mention to a friend of mine, Jason, and he runs, he's a proprietor, runs a website similar to Legacy Collectibles. And you can see it here, Samuel L. Antiques. That's his website. You can check it out, Samuel L. Antiques. And Jason contacts me and says, oh, you're doing a video on PX guns. He said, I have a magazine. You'll notice there's no magazine here. He said, I have a magazine in my collection, and it's numbered on the spine in the style of a PX gun, which means large font on the spine. And he said, it's number 170. Do you know where that gun resides? And I said, I don't know. Let me look through my safe. And within 5 minutes, I found number 170. So thank you, Jason. Huge shout out to Jason. Again, check out his website. He has the magazine that matches this gun. Now, the magazine is a little more worn than the gun, so I'm not sure how that happened. Obviously, they got misplaced and somebody took it out and shot it a bunch. This is in great condition. He is mailing me the magazine. I probably will have it in the next day or two. But number 170 does not have the Krieghoff mark toggle, but it does have late war proofs for the Luftwaffe, does have the black party leader grips, and this one will end up having a matching magazine as well. I've talked about this before. I'm just going to close with one little bit of information. How do I know these are Krieghoff parts? Krieghoff parts were unique in several ways. I've talked about it before, where the little circle at the top of the slot, this is for the stock lug. There's a little circle there. Krieghoff does not have it, so the frames are distinct. And then also, Krieghoff has teardrop versus half moon. This is half moon, this is teardrop. Let's take a look. This, I should say, this is a Mauser, BYF 41. This is Mauser, these are all Krieghoff. And you can see teardrop versus half moon, teardrop, even more of a, it's kind of milled out even a little bit more. Teardrop. And by the way, DWM also had the same teardrop, teardrop. That one's milled kind of deep. That's very distinct. Teardrop there. And then the last one, teardrop, very distinct. So I hope you got yourself some good education here about Lugers, and especially the PX guns. Very hard to find. If you have a PX gun that you want to report to me, give me the serial number and just tell me what, is it a toggle? Does it have proofs? Does it have a matching mag? I'll try to keep a database, and once I have that together, I'll make it available to all of our subscribers. Now, if you want one of these pieces, I know you're going to say, oh, put them up on the website, but I'm not sure I want to sell them. They're very rare, hard to find. I'd like to hold on to most of these, but I'll probably sell a few. So if you're interested, contact us at legacycollectibles.com and we'll see if we can help you out. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel.